Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be going over some Berimbau basics. Now we're going to go over the pieces and parts of a Berimbau as well as the 3 basic sounds that you need to learn to play the Berimbau effectively and do the majority of the rhythms that you'll find in Capoeira. We're going to do a couple of drills at the end, very basic, but get you used to moving from one sound to the next. So diving right in, the parts of a Berimbau. Gonna put down that real quick because it's loud. But Berimbaus are usually made out of Berimbau wood, and there are other different woods that happen. They could be locally sourced or whatnot, but traditionally it's made out of Beriba. And you have here the verga, which is the actual wood part. Mine has been decorated with Senhor do Bonfim ribbons, which that is just, these were gifts to me. And then the wire, it usually comes from a tire, but you can use, again, other kinds of wires. Musical wire has become popular as well, but finding the right gauge is important. This is called the arame. Then there's also a gourd called the cabaça. The cabaça serves as an amplifier, so it's hollowed out. Let me just turn this around for you. It's hollowed out here and attached with a string, so that it creates that contact point and it will amplify the sound out. Now there's different size cabaças and they have different sounds, different depth to the tone, and that all plays a part in how you put together your bateria or your orchestra at the head of the beatum, or at the foot of the roda. So this one is a larger one. It's more of a gunga, which is a low tone, and that's kind of like a bass guitar in rock and roll. It keeps the rhythm, right? It keeps the bass rhythm. There are smaller ones or higher pitched ones that are a meggio, or the medium tone, and those ones, they keep the rhythm, but they have a little bit more variation, kind of like a rhythm guitar in rock and roll. And then they're traditionally, or not traditionally, but usually the smallest gourds are violas, or the highest pitch. And those ones are like the lead guitar in rock and roll. They don't really keep the rhythm actually, but they're more variations, more that spice, right? More solos. But they all come together to make the orchestra. And to play the berimbau, you need either a coin or a rock called the dobrau to change the note. You have a stick called a baqueta, and you have a basket filled with rocks. It's a shaker called a caixixi. Now, when you hold a berimbau, if you're right-handed, you hold it with your left hand. Pinky goes under. I'm not curling all the way through, but just enough to hold it. My ring and middle finger are gonna wrap around to provide stability here around the verga. And then my thumb and my forefinger are going to hold my dobrau. All right. Your pinky is going to hurt as you're just starting to play berimbau. I like to tell you it gets better, but there will always hit a point where your pinky goes numb after playing. Just the more you play, the longer it will take for you to get to that point. So expect your pinky to hurt. Sorry. But from here, we've got our first hand of our berimbau. I'm not fully wrapping these fingers around a ton, but I've got it ready. Then I want to take my caixixi and I'm going to put it through put my ring and middle finger through. I'm going to take my baqueta, and some people will hold it more like a pencil. I tend to hold it like this, just kind of woven between my fingers with my thumb and my forefinger holding it. And I'm ready to start playing. You want to also make sure that you are holding the cabaça to your chest, not necessarily your belly, but a little bit higher up, more over your sternum area. And you can lift away. But as we get started, just hold it to your chest as an additional bit of stability that can help you out as you're learning to play. I realize that holding a berimbau can be tricky because it's a very different way of holding something for most of us. The baqueta is going to be what strikes the note, and we're going to work on some low notes here. Now, when I am hitting with my baqueta, I don't want to be back here. I want to try and be as even with the arame as I can be, just to make sure that I'm driving those notes back into the cabasa. It'll give a clearer sound, a better sound. I'm also not using my fingers. I'm using my wrist to hit. And as you go, the berimbau is supposed to be the main instrument of the roda, main instrument of the bateria. Be loud. You can hit this pretty hard and it'll be okay. I mean, it's a musical bow. It's made to be hit and played. One other thing to keep in mind as we get ready to start playing our low note, which is open. There's no coin, no dobrao touching. You want to hit close to the point of contact. So I don't want to hit right on where the string is, but I want to hit closer to it. I don't necessarily want to be hitting way up here, over here, more so here. All right. So all we're going to do, again, use that wrist, and we're just going to hit that low note. And take a moment to check, where's your hand? Is it parallel to, or not parallel, but is it even with the arame? So you got a nice little angle there. Or did I move back? Am I hitting close to the string? And honestly, just do this for a little bit. If you're feeling fancy, you can move the berimbau away from your chest, and you're going to hear that difference in sound. One's more muted, and one has a little bit richer of a sound. Good. So we've done our low note. We're going to practice our high note. And the high note is where you take your dobrao and you press it firmly against the wire. So now I can't hit it here. That's not really a sound that we want to use in our rhythms. I want to hit up here. And again, I'm hitting close to where the dobrao is to get that richness of sound. I still have my hand more so even with the arame. And I'm just playing some various notes. I had that away from my chest for a bit, but you can always play with it on your chest or a little bit away. So go ahead. Sorry, I was listening to that sound fade. You could tell that the verga and the cabasa are a good match when the notes that you play are loud, clear, and they just last for a long time. That's a good match. So not every cabasa is good for every verga. But again, that high note, just go ahead and play that a bit. Experiment with on your stomach, off your stomach. And now the hardest note is the rasp. And that is where you hold just barely touching the dobrao to the arame. And it makes a rasp sound. It's kind of scratchy almost sounding. So just gently let it go there. Personally, when I do this, I use my thumb a lot. I don't know if you could see as well, but so rasps, but when I'm making a high note, I push it forward with my thumb. So I'm just keeping my thumb in place to make sure that my dobrao doesn't go flying off to the side. And again, this is the hardest one to get, because it's very light pressure, and as a beginner, you're still working on holding the berimbau, holding the dobrao, holding all the pieces and parts together. So play this note a little bit and try and find that sweet spot. You don't necessarily need rhythm at this point. We're just working on making sure that you're getting that sound. Good. So the first drill that I would like you to do is what we've just done. Basically sit there and play the notes over and over and over and over and over. Just get used to making those sounds, individual notes. And then the last drill that we're going to talk about today is just combining those sounds. It's going to be relatively simple, but there is one key caveat that I want to point out from the high note to the low note. So when you're playing the high note and you go to a low note, it should be a clear, crisp change. And to do that, you play this note and then you don't let go of the pressure on your dobrao until you are about to strike that low note. Same thing when you go from low to high. You don't press until you're about to strike. The reason being is that, and this actually is called for in some tokis, some rhythms, but you want to get used to not having that be your default, because you don't necessarily want that doing, jing, doing, jing, or ding dong, ding dong, and you'll hear the difference. So focus on, for beginning, focus on crisp notes and crisp transitions. The hammer-ons or hammer-offs will come later as you get into more complicated tokis, with more complicated rhythms, but it's always good to have that habit, that base of clear, crisp notes. It's kind of like having a good meia-lua French and a good cocorinha before you start going into flips, right? You want to make sure you have that foundation. So again, the drill that I want you to do is focus on going maybe 4 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're just going back and forth. And throw in the rasps too. So go ahead, play with the sounds, going back and forth, and just see how you can move from one sound, one note to the next. And that'll give you a great foundation to start working on some of the tokis. All right, so good practicing your berimbau today. We went over some of the basics. Keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next video.